that little rock and roll. A buddy of mine did this for me.
Awesome.
Mr. Matt, thank you for being on the Right Balance podcast. I'm very excited to talk to you. I don't even know what I'm more excited about, your history with the Hellcat and the Confederate, or the what you're creating now, the Curtis One. I mean, there's so much going on. How would you like to start? What do you think is a good starting point?
All right. Well, let's start with that '69 Sportster.
Yeah.
I think when I in 1977, I'd learned how to ride in the dirt like everybody from when I was like 12, like a lot of kids back then in the 1960s. And I had all these. I love the British bikes. So I had British bikes first with this. I had a CB160 Scramble, then the British stuff, and maybe the Trophy Trail. I had a Trophy Trail that I got in '71, which I really liked, which was a Steve McQueen bike. His was blue, mine was yellow. But when I got the '69 XLCH, which was a little more money, it was the back then the British stuff was maybe 2/3 the price of what a Harley would run. That was a real moment in time. Really got me in a space where I very much began to appreciate the notion of the quote great American road bike experience. Because I got the bike in Macomb, Mississippi, and I rode it back to Baton Rouge, where I was attending LSU Law School. And on that highway, man, I mean, my soul was soaring. I was like, there's something going on here that I'm really digging. It's like almost like the difference between I've been with girls, but now I'm with a girl I'm going to marry or something like that. This is a girl. I really feel connected to this. And then so you flash forward, after all the Japanese motorcycles and all the cool stuff in the 80s and 90s, getting back to Harley because I went through this other period. And then the idea of the making of the Hellcat was getting back to that great American road bike. What had happened is, in my mind, was Harley had gone through this transition where they became a great business. And they, when I got into the business, Harley stock was like 25 cents, and like 18 years later was $75. So they went from basically not having value to being worth $6 billion and being the most valuable motorcycle brand in history. Honda beats them, but Honda's really a car brand, obviously.
Right.
They started with motorcycles, and like BMW. So, but in the commoditization of the real road bike feel had been had kind of been lost. It had been lost.
Yeah.
That wasn't. They've become much easier to use and made for a broader audience. So what we did with the Hellcat is we brought it back. I mean, the Hellcat, the G1 Hellcat, was kind of like what you would experience on an XLCH in 1969. It was a very authentic American motorcycle. 30 degrees of rake, about 64 inches wheelbase, 88 horsepower, 100 foot-pounds of torque, 490 pounds. So it had the lightest wheels, ZR rated 17s. It was the first American bike to ever run light wheels, the world's best brakes, the best suspension. And we turned the transmission upside down around and ran it in reverse, stored the center-to-center distance between the output shaft and the crank by about 5 inches. And then we tied it all down as a monocoque and billet to the swing arm pivot. So you had this big 3-inch welded frame that was super robust. So it was very, very rigid, the chassis. So it was a new way of imagining what it was like to be on an American motorcycle. And we used that for 24 years. We stayed with that formula. It was great.
Yeah, I remember seeing the first one ever. I was working at a Harley dealership in 2008, 2009 in Monterey County. And there was a guy in Monterey County, he owned one. And I remember seeing that thing. It it blew my mind away. And it's interesting because back then there wasn't, and I've said this many times on the podcast, back then there wasn't many customization companies making parts for motorcycles. I mean, there was Custom Chromes, there was a handful of companies, that were around, but
Yep.
nothing like it is today. So back then to see something so customized and so beautiful, I mean, it turned heads.
It's not. It was. It was novel. I mean, I always believe that sales are best. That if you're going to be a new brand, the new Curtis is a very novel looking bike. I think that if
Beautiful.
the thing that I'm most pleased with about the work that the company has done is that the motorcycles are novel to look at and they are timeless. If you have a G1 Hellcat right now and pull up to, you can pull up to some bar and grill where there's a lot of guys on Harleys, and the guys on Harleys will come out and be like, dude, I like your bike a lot. I mean,
Oh, they'll lose their,
you're not going to, everyone still digs. You can be on a 1996 Confederate Hellcat and be the king of whatever place you're at right now. I mean,
oh
so
yeah, no, for sure. It hasn't lost its touch at all. It is
no,
still,
there's nothing bad about it.
yeah.
And, yep, it's a good thing. And we just got them. We just worked the program, and we made 8 different V twins. So, Robert, and I don't know. I don't know which one of them is the best. They're all really good. They
Well, they're,
all.
they're they're all really good for their time. Also, I mean, each thing has its own. It's like the Mustang, the 1968, 69 Mustang is this legend. Then you look at the 70s and 80s Mustangs. It's like, it's not the same. So your bikes for their time have been on point. And now this Curtis, I mean, you couldn't make an EV motorcycle anytime sooner, really, right?
Well, the EV thing is something that's really fascinating. It's really, I mean, I'm very smitten with what we've got now. It almost feels perfect. Like we needed to do the 8 bikes we did. We needed to go through the learning to actually create a bike like the one by Curtis, which is real special. It is something, and I don't know. I cannot honestly say that it's going to crack the code for everyone that's like yourself, or it has for me, but I'm pretty damn old. I don't know if a younger guy like you is going to be like, this is where I want to be. A lot of my clients, we have like 1,000 people that are our customers that are in the expression of interest zone about getting a Curtis,
Yeah.
that haven't been able to make the transition, and I don't know if they're going to make it because the V twin experience is so raw, particularly the way that we did it, which was with no rubber, no nothing. I mean, in other words, there's no counterbalancing. We did a few bikes with counterbalancing, the G1 Fighter and the Wraith, but nothing else has any balance factor other than just blueprinting the motor. So you're really, you're in the throes of all of these parts that are moving and that are oiled up, and it's loud and it shakes and it's got shunt and you have to shift it. And so I don't know. I don't know about that particular customer. But what I do know, Robert, is that there's a whole nother buyer, wealthy people that can finally say, all right, now I've got a motorcycle I can get. So it's kind of a whole new audience of people that we're engaging with now. About 20%, we've got almost 40 sales, and about 20%, about 8 of those guys have never ridden a bike.
Interesting.
So I think, yeah, I think what you've got here is something that could be, all of a sudden, if you can ride a bicycle, you can ride it. It's easier to ride than a bicycle.
Yeah.
Very balanced.
Yeah. That's another thing. Let's talk about the balance. I mean, that's like one of the biggest highlights. I can't even, it just sounds like it's perfectly balanced. I
It
mean,
is.
that's how you guys.
Yeah,
So
it's weird. I've got this thing. this thing right here. So this is an example, an early one of what we call the axis of power. So what happened what happened inside of our company is from the beginning we were wanting to have an organic motorcycle, but we recognized that one of the problems, and you might have thought about this or maybe you haven't, but like bicycles, all the companies, including Mr. Curtis, his company, all of the motorcycle companies started off as bicycle companies. So essentially, a motorcycle became like a bicycle that you would put a motor in. So it wasn't really organic like you think of biological life, as you think of like humanity comes into existence by the sperm fertilizing an egg, and then it grows from the inside out to form us as as persons. And so we had always wanted, we'd always dreamed of what would it be like if we could build a motorcycle from the inside out. And in a way we did, because we basically rethought of the American road bike with this upside. So if you take, we made the transmission in the Harley vertical. It was derived from a Kawasaki drag bike from the 80s, where they ran the transmission in reverse. So we took the transmission that laid like this, and we turned it this way, and then this way, and then this way, and then the shaft came out this way, and it ran in reverse. So it was kind of, let's go to the very center of it, and then we located that to the swing arm pivot. So we were kind of doing some inside out thinking. But this is a greater version of it, because the way you start the build of a Curtis is you tap this shaft through the center of the axial flux, the very special axial flux motor. It's keyed to the inside of that motor, Robert. And then you have the motor centered on the centered shaft, and then you build your bike. Then you put your core of the motorcycle onto that, and then the legs on the outside of the shaft, the swing arm pivot.
Yeah.
And everything else just follows symmetrically, completely balanced. So side to side weight is idealized. There's never been a bike made like this. It's just kind of a small thing, but
no, it's a huge thing.
But yeah, they say that Jacqueline Kennedy, if you look at her shoes, like one of her shoes had a little more of an extension on the heel, because one of her legs was shorter than the other one.
Right.
So if you imagine, most people's legs are pretty damn symmetrical, so their gait is very very smooth and feels very organic to them. But if you did have one leg that was shorter than the other, then that is something, whether we realize it or not, on a gas or on an ICE, you're always, when you get on that bike, it's always, with all the various parts, like on your GS or whatever it is, it's always going to be a little, if you hold it, it's going to fall to one side.
100%. I look at my wheels, and it's like the left side of my wheels is being wasted more than the right side.
Yeah.
Another example that I think about, you look at a professional swimmer. I mean, they shave their hair off their body because, you lose a race by half a second or a second. That could make that difference. So everything counts. Everything in life is balanced. Look at our planet. Look at where we're at in the solar system. I mean, it's so perfect that if you change anything, it's a game changer. So, and that's what I was going to ask. When you say buyers like me or the younger generation or whatever the case is, do you think one of the reasons that maybe they would be turned off is because they haven't experienced something like this? We don't, there's that saying that's like, you don't know what you don't know. You know what you know, and you know what you don't know, but you don't know what you do not know. And can this be one of those exceptions of like, you don't know what you don't know? There's nothing been like this ever.
I don't think there's any doubt about it. I think that it's it, but it, I think now I'm speaking from this is for me personally because the bike is faster. So the weird thing is so it's kind of think of it like like Bruce Wayne and Batman or like the James Bond fictional character. I mean,
I see both of them
so,
when I
so, so maybe James Bond could kick the shit out of Mike Tyson because he knows some crazy way to fight, some kind of scientific way to fight. The work we did before with V Twins was always very Mike Tyson like. It was just a short guy, a shorter heavyweight with enormous power, very stocky, black trunks, black shoe, storming around the ring, coming to knock you out. That's it. I mean, there's no finesse. I knock you out. I'm badass, and I'm more badass than you, and that's it. I'm the most bad. So it was badassery. It really is what the whole thing, the whole American road bike. And there's a.
I was gonna say it sounds like what America was made of.
Well, I mean, look, my Sportster was like that. So it was straight pipes. It was kickstart. It was orange. I mean, it had chrome straight. I mean, when I fired it up at the South Downs, which was a local bar I used to go drink at when I was in school, and I mean, it sounded the business, and it was nothing subtle about it. It wasn't really a gentleman's thing. But the Curtis One is a very gentlemanly, polite, friendly. It's more like the old pitch line or strap line of Honda. You meet the nicest people on a Honda. So you'd have like the Beach Boys, and in California, in Southern California, in the early '60s, and they would be on some cool little Honda Cub, and they would be playing some pleasant sounding music that was real friendly. But the Harley thing was more like Altamont and the Rolling Stones and Jimi Hendrix and and choppers.
Yeah, I get that. No,
It's a different situation.
and the look, the first thing that I look when I see the Curtis One is I get that you've seen the movie Kingsman, right?
Oh yeah.
It's that kind of vibe. You bring up Batman. I don't see Batman on it, but I see Bruce Wayne on it. It's
That's
one
right.
it's one of those styles. Batman's gonna have a different, crazier machine gun one, but Bruce Wayne's gonna go to the party in that, and that's definitely the vibes and look that I get from it. It's beautiful.
And when you see it in person, it is. Thank you for saying that. And I think JT really killed it. He's an artist. JT Nesbitt, the designer of the bike, is more artist than designer, and it really is beautiful, and it really does lend itself to personalization like no other machine that I'm familiar with. But your point is exactly right. It's more like Bruce Wayne. So it's like the real you, and then there's the shadow.
Right.
So there's the person that would never lose his cool, that's totally under control, that has enormous discipline, and that's centered, and takes responsibilities in the flow of life. And then there's the shadow of that person that that every now and then something will happen and he might lose it. Maybe something happens and you're like, I'm at the break point, and that's the other bike. That would be like the bikes we used to make, like the P51 Combat Fighter is the most raw and primal of all the raw and primal versions of our prior work. And we did our best to get 200 horsepower, and we got one of them down at about 172 or something.
Wow.
But when you're making that kind of power out of an air-cooled 132 cubic inch motor that's solid mounted, and everything you touch is metal, there's nothing between you and just being on that solid piece. It's kind of the shadow. It's kind of your evil twin. It would be the Batman.
That is Batman.
Yeah, it's when you just want to, you just like, something. I'm gonna go out tonight with my buddies, and we're gonna get drunk, and we're gonna act stupid.
We're gonna act stupid.
Yeah, we're gonna be the shadow. Hopefully nobody gets hurt, but we're gonna act out.
Yeah.
So it's almost like a 180 degree but I believe we've 10x. I think it's 10. I think we've cracked the code. I think that it's the first actual luxury motoring on two wheels is what I think. So so anybody can use it.
Yeah.
Your mother can ride it, and if she did, when she was riding it down to get a cup of coffee at 7 a.m. on Sunday morning when there's no traffic, and this is another thing I think is important is now if you have a Curtis in the garage, you can ride it at 6 in the morning or midnight at night. You can take it out anytime, so you don't have to use it when there's traffic. You could take it out when there is no traffic. And that's a real game changer because you don't have to worry about someone. So many people now are texting and concerned about getting where they're going, and you always have the worry when you're on your motorcycle that somebody's going to accidentally bump into you and hurt you, and there's nothing you can do about it. But if one thing you can do about it is only ride when there's not much traffic, when traffic is de minimis, and so that's one of the things that I'm most excited about is opening two-wheeled uh, luxury motoring to a lot more people who can say, something, this isn't any more dangerous than snow skiing.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, the technology part. I mean, we got EV, we got electronics. So it's very beautiful and very simple, but there's no onboard computer, right? It's very minimalistic. There's no settings to play around with or distractions on the motorcycle itself, right?
Well, the Curtis approach is to with electric is to provide the high tech powertrain that's way shrunken down, so it's a much more densely powerful uh, way to create energy, and it runs exceedingly cool because in our case we've immersed everything, so you have no heat factor at all. You never feel anything hot, so your girl never has to worry. And I've had my wife burn her leg on our motorcycle 37 years ago. Like
And
it's
she's
always going to
used it.
happen,
Yeah.
but there's none of that. Uh, and uh, and it makes a lot more torque. It's a lot more powerful.
Yeah. It's all.
But you're right. You're right. We did not put anything between the rider. So, but you're still in an analog universe. So you're in control of the motorcycle. So we didn't want to put a computer between you and the device, even though we could have, and we could.
Yeah.
There's a lot of computing on board, but that's just not where. What we want is for you to learn your bike. So if you get a Curtis One, then you're going to have to rethink because like when you're in the canyons, Robert, you can't sometimes you can't pull the clutch and stop. You're always connected because it doesn't have a clutch. You have two brake pulls at the handlebar. So when you're going around the corner, you're always in gear.
Yeah.
So you kind of have to.
No, it's
It's
amazing. I have a live wire as well, and
yep.
this EV bikes it's amazing. Obviously, it's nothing compared to Curtis One, but no clutch, no messing around fumbling through gears, no just jump on and give it a go. And I do like what you get the direction you guys are going without messing with settings. Like if I was to make a recommendation and you guys are going to have some kind of settings to be modified, then do it via app. So you have to be off the bike, it's in neutral, and you can say, all right, sports mode or rain mode or whatever you're trying to do, if raise the suspension, lower suspension. But you do it via app. So once you get on the bike and it's moving, the app won't even connect to it. So you have some kind of modifications. But I know the Curtis One comes with its own toolkit, and the toolkit gives you all the tools to adjust anything and everything on the bike, correct?
Yeah, it just a very small subset of tools. You can take the whole bike apart. It's
That's awesome.
really it's a really considered thing, and you can change the rake and trail, which is kind of a weird thing to be able to do, but you can, and it makes a big difference. And it has a multi-link rear suspension as well, so you can change ride height. Uh,
Beautiful.
So it's, oh yeah, yeah. I mean, it's a tinkerer's dream, but at the same time, we can set it up at the factory and bring it to you. I'm glad that you like the analog approach.
Love it.
I think that they're too, that things are too complex. So we're not trying to make it harder. We're actually wanting to make it super easy to use. And it is. It's real easy to ride. One of the big things we went for was kind of what you would think of as if Bentley or Rolls-Royce had a had an electric motorcycle. So the Curtis would be like the Rolls-Royce Phantom if it were a car.
Yeah.
So now it is 217 horsepower capable. So there's this enormous, and it weighs about 450 pounds. So there's an enormous amount of potential speed that you can get to. But the basic tuning of the machine is soft and sublime in terms of the way you use it. So when you roll the throttle, it's gentle off the line. Like I've ridden the live wire is more of a hot rod feel to it. Very
Yeah.
nice. I love it. It's a good bike.
Yeah.
I think that one of the big differences between, well, I mean, the axial flux and our technology is a lot more expensive. So it's more like a V12 and theirs would be like a V6 or something. But the biggest difference for me is in the appearance.
Oh, 100%.
I think,
Not only the appearance, but obviously the appearance, but the quality and the machining of each and separate part on the motorcycle. I was just looking at pictures, and I can print those all day and just put it all over the office and have artwork, because it's beautiful. I mean, you guys did a stunning job.
well, that's what I mean. The parts. I mean, the motor's $12,000. The battery's $9,400. I mean, the inverter's like $4,500. So you're all the pieces, the proprietary pieces are like 25,000 to make, and we've got 130 rounds of them. So it's a really expensive thing.
Yeah,
I mean, it looks really awesome because, in the same way that Kobe beef is great. It's because it costs much to create a beef product like that. I mean, it's worth it. If you have it,
if you like caviar, you should eat caviar.
If you can afford it.
So
so there's that, but there's also just I'm real pleased with the way that we were able to get the. I think it relates, and I'm not really sure about this, but I think it relates to the inside out, to this first principle approach. This we've always had this thing about, like, the first principle of the company is individuality, and the principle of individuality, and the motorcycle is, for us, from the beginning of the formation of our company, the motorcycle is the ultimate creation of man that exemplifies the spirit of individuality. So when you and Jason were riding your GS, your two GS BMWs yesterday, even though y'all are together, it's very much an individual thing.
100%.
If you do something crazy, it could redound. It's kind of the Jimi Hendrix thing in that one song where he said, I'm the one that's going to die when it's my time to die.
Right.
That's the most individualistic thing of all. Is the one thing we will all do is we will all die, and when we do, it'll be Robert. It'll be you, and it'll be me.
Yeah.
If you're there when I die, you won't die, but I will, and I will experience that. That will be a hell of an experience. A very individual experience. Couldn't be more individualistic than that. So when you're on your bike, I mean, you're not in a train, you're not in a plane. It's not like you're just sitting there and whatever happens is going to happen to all of us. There's no collective. So I think that making that the first principle of the company has resulted in an ability to have now our ninth bike that exudes a sense of the individual, but yet it does have this all new technology, this high technology. but at the same time, it has the same principled, individualist, emotive essence that the bikes had when I was a little child. On Main Street in Baton Rouge, they had all the dealerships. They had Harley, Ducati, Goodsey, Bridgestone, all the four Japanese brands, and Triumph, PSA Norton. Everything was on that one street.
Yeah.
And even though some of the bikes were cheap, like a Bridgestone or whatever, they still were very individualistic. It wasn't like they were just plastic. Like now, a lot of stuff is just a plastic cover.
Yep.
So you look at a motorcycle, and it's like, they design the cover, they do a graphic. What's underneath it, I don't really know. I mean, it's got, they'll tell you what kind of motor it is, but it's really,
It's covered in plastic, chrome plastic.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's terrible quality wise, and it's interesting because if we look at what we've been riding for years and think about not having ABS, anti-lock brake systems, the frames of bikes that we used to ride compared to the frames of bikes today, and you look at all the safety, the old cruise control. Remember, it was just a little knob under your. You would just put your grab your gas and just tighten it up. Like, you think about how dangerous that is, and how long we've come. But then you look at the quality of bikes itself. A lot of them have fallen off. It's just plastic, 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 plastic. Not all of them, but most of them. And it's just you can't appreciate it as much. There's not many bikes that you look at and it's artwork. I mean, other than the Curtis.
Or even just desirability. I worry very much that the reason that a lot of millennials don't want to get into motorcycling is there's just not a bike out there that's saying to them, man, I got to have that bike. When I was a child, I mean, one of the reasons I wanted to learn how to ride the motorcycle, was because I wanted one so bad.
Yeah.
I mean, it was almost like when I first, went to school and started hanging around with girls and seeing girls. I mean, I could tell, right, I want that. I mean, I'm going to try to figure out a way to, I was nervous and awkward and klutzy and goofy as I could be, but I was definitely going to try to figure something out because I knew I wanted to eventually be able to connect with, I came from a family with all brothers, just my mom, all men basically. So the same was true with motorcycles, but I'm not sure, how much motorcycles, even though they're more powerful and as you pointed out accurately, in many ways, technically they may be better, maybe, but I don't know if they're more desirable. We really wanted to make the Curtis something that people would look at and say, I'm just going to have that.
Yeah.
So the desirability factor for Curtis is really, really acute.
What about because this conversation that we're talking about, the demand of wanting motorcycles, I feel it's very local, like the US, not everybody wants to ride as much as they used to, or bike sales are not as high as they were. But when you scale out and go globally, I mean, you have countries that just rely on bikes and scooters and everything else. And then those cities have, like India. I was in India and Mumbai, and everybody's on a scooter. But then you have you have a class of very rich people that buy, import a bike from Italy, import a bike from America. Harley Davidson just opened up a factory in India, right?
Right.
So then when you look at it at a global scale, do you think there's a higher demand, or do you think it's still US? And I'm not even saying you said it's US. I'm just assuming, based on the conversation, that US is kind of where you focus on this.
We're focusing really on where you are, Southern California and Northern. Yeah. We're gonna start, and we are starting with the smallest viable audience, which is the California 10 millionaire, rich people in California that don't have bikes. So the thing is, the kind of 10x 0 to 1 code that we believe we've cracked with the first real luxury motoring on two wheels ever. We want to bring that straight to where you are, and say to the people out there, our message is clear, that you can live in the Hollywood Hills and ride this around on Sunday morning for 45 minutes, and you'll love it. It'll be one of the most enjoyable things you do. You could ride it for 10 or 15 miles to work and back once month or something, and it'll be one of the greatest things you ever own. It'll be the ultimate object of desire in your life. That's that's really what the company wants to do. And then we're starting at the very top, but then we'll start to come down in valuation as our volume goes up, and we'll introduce some new models that will, many of which are already complete. So we have quite a bit of design work to come out with over the next 4 or 5 years.
Which we're all looking forward to. And then can we talk about the value factor of this is a machine you can buy and this really could last forever. You could just change out the battery packs once the battery packs. I mean, I was watching a couple videos and it says like the way this thing runs, you'll never have to worry about it ever. You could pass this down generations and generations and generations.
Yes, I don't see any reason why this motor wouldn't last. It's under very little load. It runs really cool. It's a great motor. It's the motor that's in the Ferrari, and it's going to be the AMG motor for Mercedes. It's the best. It's the best electric motor ever made, the P400 that's in our bike. So, and it's the only thing that moves. So you have this shaft and the motor. So that's it. So there's, compared to what we've been dealing with ICE, where you have this plethora of moving parts everywhere and all this shunt and vibration and all that. So there's no vibration. And then we use the immersion cooling system so that all of the electronics are immersed in the dielectric fluid. So as we all know, even my blender in the morning, if it gets hot, it'll cut out. Heat is the enemy of electronics. So we've eliminated that factor. So that's good. I just feel like, the battery obviously is going to have to come out every 10, 15 years, at least for now, until we get, I'm sure that they'll eventually will have a battery that'll last longer.
Yeah,
that would be the only thing. And we designed the bike where it's relatively simple. A couple of hours, we can pull this battery out and we can put a new battery in. So the
That's
dream,
amazing.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
No, that's amazing. Beautiful.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Well, the idea is that you could get this thing and you could give it to your grandson and he could give it. I everybody has this dream of having some kind of ultimate heirloom like this, but imagine something this personal. Like this is a lot more than, my dad's leather jacket or whatever that I have. This is great, but what we're talking about now is something that, this was my great grandfather's motorcycle. And I don't think, and this is pivotal, I don't think it's going to be any different. I don't know what would really wear. You might have to do some bearing replacement, maybe. But I don't know why you would. I don't know. It's just not a lot of stress on the motorcycle.
That's beautiful.
Yeah, it's a super exciting time for us because, you dream about these things, but with the way that the machine worked, the machines that we made, the difference in how many little detail moving parts and the way that everything works with all of the vibration and shunt, it's just such a different world. Just as something as simple as the life of a grade 8 fastener over time on one of our old bikes versus our new one, where you have no vibration at all.
It's wild.
Yeah, it's quite interesting.
Yeah, it's very wild. Where do you stand, on my opinion on self-driving cars? I wasn't interested in it before. I was like, no, people can drive better than self-driving cars. But I ride so much through traffic in California and Los Angeles that, I'm looking inside windows and people are texting and people are eating food and people are fighting and arguing and they're just not paying attention to cars, or anybody around them. I'm at the point where I can't wait for self-driving cars. You got infrared sensors, cameras, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Technology is growing. If a car needs to lane split, it'll get to a point where a car can communicate to the other car and say, hey, I'm going to lane split, make room. The car goes in. I'm sure they'll see a motorcycle way better than than a person on his phone texting. Even my Tesla now that realizes people crossing the street sees motorcycles. What's your opinion? Would you agree with that statement, or what? Are you excited about self-driving cars, or you don't care for it?
I'm right there with you. I think that one of the I believe that the future, one of the reasons that I believe that what we're doing is so important is because I believe that in the future, say let's flash forward to 2050. My visual of 2050 is that there won't be an ability to use a four-wheel device, for an analog driver. So you won't be able to, you'll live in a world where you will only be able to go out on four wheels in a pod that will drive you. And I say that to you because I think it makes legislative sense. So if
Right.
I go out in my 6,000-pound pickup truck and I'm acting out, I could run over a guy in a pod and kill him. So they can say, we're just going to not even take that chance by just making it where if you want to go out on the grid, and that's what it'll be, you've got to you've got to be in the computer controlled device.
Right.
This opens up a world where the only analog way for me and you to transport ourselves is on two wheels.
Yeah.
Because you cannot have a computer controlled motorcycle because of the nature of the nature of balance on two wheels.
Actually, they're doing it.
Yeah,
BMW has something.
I think they are. I think they're going to try for that, but I don't think it's ever going to be satisfactory. But I could be wrong about that.
Yeah, I saw some videos. It was interesting that they have BMWs that ride in the track on their own. As they stop, kickstand comes down. As it moves, kickstand rolls up. And I don't know. I don't remember exactly what they're going to use it for, but it looks cool. Why
Yeah,
not?
yeah. To me, it sounds like something that that like a technology that's not like I don't think that I want to climb on board a horse, for instance, and just be strapped on top of the horse and just let the horse just gallop around wherever he wants to go the
No,
way he wants to.
100%. I was just bringing
Uh,
up the
yeah.
self-driving cars because as a motorcycle rider, I would I would feel so much better if 99% of the cars were self-driving.
Well, that was where I was headed, which is completely in line with great minds thinking alike. I completely think you're onto something because once you and I can get on our Curtis motorcycle and ride around LA and every car is on a grid, which is where we'll be in 20 years, let's say, then we don't then that removes the chance of us getting hurt by a car. That
Yeah.
will so I mean just imagine how awesome it would be to ride knowing that couldn't happen.
Yeah. Oh,
So the
100.
only way now you could crash into a car, and I think that the legislatively it'll be okay for you and I to have our bike because if we crash into a car, we're not going to kill the guy in the car or the girl in the car.
Right.
If
Right.
we crash into the car and if you're in a 5,000-pound car and I'm in a 5,000-pound car and I crash into you, I'm going to hurt you. But if I hit you on my 450-pound Curtis, it's not going to do anything. It's going to hurt me maybe. So I could still crash into you, but you can't crash into me. Oh man, what a wonderful set of, yeah. I mean that opens up now. Most people's fear is that they're going to get run over on a motorcycle. They're afraid to ride because they don't want to get hit. I think we can remove some of that fear now by the accessibility of the quietness of the motorcycle. So even if you live next to an infant, next door neighbor has an infant, you don't have to worry about waking up the baby at 5 a.m. if you want to go ride when there's no traffic. Be the first person at the coffee shop when they open up. No problem. You just roll up your garage door and cruise out on your Curtis. It makes no noise whatsoever.
Yeah, it's funny because one of the arguments that I get on the live wire is, "Oh, it's too quiet. It's too quiet. Nobody can hear it." And it's like, Well, again, in my experience, I have a loud bike and I have the live wire. Uh, the only time the streak light or the Harley, the loud pipes helps is when you're in slow traffic and you can be like, boom, boom, move out of the way, move out of the way. But when you're going 60, 70 miles, all that sound is behind you. The cars in front of you don't really even hear that sound. So it doesn't make a difference. What I did notice that I do like and I see people respond more to is bright lights. Like on the BMW, I have these bright lights and people see bright lights. I think bright lights is more important than loud pipes. And anyways, like I said, that's just disregarded because you could have a bike that's silent. That doesn't matter. You got to be seen and you got to make yourself seen, period.
Yeah, look, I can see that both ways. I'm loving the quietness of riding the Curtis. It just makes me feel more a part of the organic, natural side to being on a motorcycle. I feel more environmentally connected. But I also, again, it's just the real person and the shadow side. The noise of a big V twin is always going to have a certain kind of knockout punch to it for people that grew up with it. So I don't know if I can ever be acclimated out of that.
Yeah.
And so it's just maybe the answer is to have both. I mean, tell me what it's like to have the live wire and the street glide and the road glide and the GS. I mean, it sounds like you're in a kind of a perfect world. You got four.
I don't have the road glide. I used to have a road glide, got rid of that, but I have the streak line, the GSA, and the live wire.
That's nice, man.
Yeah, it's the best of each his own class.
Yeah.
It's currently, and obviously we're talking about in general market. Um, yeah, it's nice. I don't know what to tell you. When I ride the GS, I love the GS. This is amazing. When I ride the Harley and I'm going to the local bar or something, I love the Harley. I love the feel when I'm going down Sunset, when I'm in downtown LA, hearing the noise, bounce off the city. I love it. And when I'm on the live wire, same man, and I interesting enough, I consider myself a pretty damn good rider, and I could split lanes. Like one or the other doesn't make me split lanes slower. My riding is consistent on all bikes. It's just different. The live wire, that silence. I don't know. I feel like a ninja. On
That's
the
good. Yeah.
yeah, on the Harley, I feel like a thug, and I could just everybody's
Yeah.
like everybody moves out of the way because you're a thug. And
Yeah.
on the GS, I feel like I'm a cop because my bike's painted all white and it's got all these lights on it that people just like burp. It's just authority. An authority is coming through when you're splitting lanes. So it's
Oh, that's great. I love it.
yeah. So it's just, am I a ninja today, or am I a badass? And it's weird because even my outfits, like when I ride another bike, I gotta wear a different outfit. So I gotta have
Yeah.
different outfits for 3 different bikes, which is even more ridiculous because then you start going into cost of clothing and customizing each bike. It's crazy. Yeah, anyways, it's crazy.
I love what you just said, and I think that's that when I was growing up, we used to say the motorcycle makes the man, and in this case, you get a chance to express yourself three different ways.
Yeah.
I love what you just said. So you have authority, kind of a thuggish shadow self, the more authoritative, and then the ninja. Yeah, that makes perfect sense.
Yeah. Yeah. That's the way I would describe it. And like I said, I see Curtis and I think it's Bruce Wayne. That's the Bruce Wayne of motorcycles.
Well, we may just follow up on that. I think you might have just given us great, uh, some great feedback.
Matt, I know you're a busy man. I want to say thank you so much for your time. I really hope to meet you. I know, I've been seeing we have a very small circle.
Yeah,
Whether it's Jason and then Hyman. Hyman's a good friend of mine.
yeah, he's a great guy.
He's the
The
best,
best. He's the best.
the best of the best.
Yeah.
I've been hanging out with him quite a bit lately, but one of the best moments I had was him just playing with my 3.5-year-old, just for like 40 minutes. He was just playing with my kid, and I was like, this is amazing. Like, this is
Yeah, I
outstanding.
have to say that, I mean, knowing Jaime is one of the best things that's ever happened in my life. I mean, he's like if ever there was like a perfect human being, at least around me, I
Yeah.
can't find a flaw in the guy. He's like the coolest guy. He's got everything going for him, but yet he's totally humble and sweet, and he's just the most decent fellow. And also, he is kind of the Bruce Wayne Batman
Yeah.
persona guy. I mean, he's
You're
he's
right.
he's super cool. Uh, yeah,
Yeah. I vouch for that 100%. And so do many. But
yeah.
Matt, I love what you're doing.
Thank you.
Very excited. Uh, this project that you guys are going to do with Jason, I think that's going to give opportunity for other people to also get involved with this. And I think your market is going to grow. It's going to grow very big, especially with all this cryptocurrency and all this technology coming on. So the opportunities are great. But we'll leave it at that, and then hopefully next time I'll see you in person.
I hope so. Thank you so much. I enjoyed it.
Thank you.
All right.